Worlds crumbled and stars burned as the Sakari Empire and Varrock's dominion waged the bloodiest war the galaxy had ever seen for 500,000 years, until a human stumbled into the fight and ended it all in a single day. When human explorer Louis Miller discovered the embattled Sakari homeworld, it was nearly by accident. But there was no mistaking the debris fields of shattered ships, the slagged planets, the floating graveyards. Louis had seen the aftermaths of many battles, but this scale of devastation stunned him. Against all odds, despite their suspicion and hostility, Louis made contact with Wesson, a high-ranking Sakari commander. The war-weary alien explained that they had been locked in a seemingly endless conflict with the ruthless Varrocs for a staggering 500,000 years. Both sides were near the brink of extinction, entire star systems laid waste, civilian populations decimated. Neither could gain an advantage. It was a meat grinder in space, churning through lives and worlds. Studying Sakari tech and tactics, Louis realized human ingenuity and audacity could break the stalemate. He called in reinforcements from Earth, a hardened unit of space marines, and a fleet of advanced warships that outclassed anything the Sakari or Varrocs had. Working with Wesson to exploit weaknesses, they hatched a desperate plan for a surprise attack to strike at the heart of the Varrocs Empire. If it failed, the Sakari would be wiped out, and the Varrocs would become an unstoppable threat. But if it worked, the longest war in history could end in a day. Everything depended on the humans pulling off a miracle. The endless bloodshed, the uncountable deaths, the clash of alien titans. It would all come down to what one small band of humans could do with a single shot at victory against impossible odds. Louis squeezed the throttle as his fighter rocketed through the swarm of Varrocs craft. Sakari and human warships unleashed hell on the Varrocs lines. Beams of searing light sliced through hulls. Torpedoes shattered into explosions against shields. Cannons hurled shells the size of buildings. It was a maelstrom of destruction, and they were winning. "Commander Wesson, the Varrocs' 6th and 9th fleets are in disarray," Louis called over comms. "If we hit their command ships now, I think we can rout them completely." "Affirmative," Wesson replied, his voice steely. "All ships converge on the Varrocs' flagships for Sakari and Earth." A cheer went up across the human Sakari channels as the Allied fleet surged forward. Louis led a wing of fighters in a daring attack run, strafing the hulking Varrocs dreadnoughts. Sakari frigates and human destroyers followed close behind, pouring fire into the breaches. In minutes, the Varrocs' command ships were burning wrecks, their fleets scattered in all directions. Louis couldn't believe it. They had done it. Broken the Varrocs' line. Reports flooded in from across the front. The Varrocs were retreating everywhere, abandoning bases, fleeing deeper into their territory. For the first time in 500,000 years, they were on the back foot. "Commander, this is our chance," Louis urged over the comm. "We've got them off balance. If we keep up the attack, push into their space, we might be able to force a surrender. End this war today." There was a charged pause, then Wesson's voice, thrumming with a new determination. "All ships, prepare for full offensive into Varrocs' territory. We will not stop until they capitulate or are destroyed. Today, we end this." The human Sakari fleet leapt forward, crossing the border into Varroc space, driving for the heart of the enemy empire with Louis at the tip of the spear. But as they advanced, the true toll of the ageless conflict became horrifically clear. They passed planets cracked and lifeless, scoured of all trace of civilization. Moons shattered into tumbling asteroids. The drifting graveyards of fleets and stations beyond count, which had battled and died across eons. An entire galaxy, traumatized and broken by a war that had raged since before the dawn of life on Earth. A war they were so close to ending, if they could just... Alarms blared in Louis' cockpit. His fighter shuddered as a hail of weapons fire hammered into his shields. A Varrocs ambush, a wall of enemy ships surged from behind a gutted moon, unleashing a blizzard of missiles and beams. Louis wrenched the stick, sending his fighter into a wild spiral. "Commander, we've got a major Varrocs force here. Looks like they pulled ships from across the front. We're heavily outnumbered. Hold position, we're moving to assist, Wazin called back. But Louis could see the tactical display. The Sicari were too far. His fighter wing was cut off and surrounded. The Verox had sprung the perfect trap. Shields buckled and died around him as Verox fire tore into human fighters. They wouldn't last minutes against a force this size. Louis's mind raced. His pilots fought like hell, blasting Verox ships with guns and torpedoes even as they died in droves. But it wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. They needed a miracle, and he had to find it. Fast. Or humanity's great gambit to save the Sicari and end the forever war would end here, in fire and ruin. He gritted his teeth, hands flying over the controls. Think, damn it, think! Louis's mind raced as he assessed their dire situation. The Verox ambush had caught them completely off guard, and his fighters were hopelessly outgunned. But then he spotted it. A massive nebula cloud looming nearby, its swirling gases a chaotic mess of cosmic debris and radiation. All wings, form up on me. We're making a run for that nebula, Louis barked into the comm. His pilots acknowledged, falling into tight formation behind him as they gunned their engines. The Verox pursuers took the bait, pouring fire at the fleeing human ships as they closed in. Louis gritted his teeth as his fighter shuddered under the barrage. Steady! Steady! Now! Full throttle and dive in! The human fighters plunged into the roiling nebula. Instantly, Louis' sensors went haywire, static filling his displays. Perfect. Cut all non-essential systems and go dark, he ordered. Use visual flight rules only. The human ships went silent, engines dimmed to bare minimum as they slipped deeper into the nebula's core. Louis peered through his cockpit, relying on sight alone to navigate the treacherous gas clouds. Minutes ticked by in tense silence. Then Louis spotted what he was waiting for, the telltale engine flares of Verox ships, scattered and searching blindly through the nebula. There's our chance, Louis whispered. Alpha and Bravo wings on me. We're going hunting. His fighters crept through the nebula, stalking their prey. When a lone Verox cruiser drifted into view, Louis pounced. Fire! Torpedoes streaked out, slamming into the Verox ship before it could react. The cruiser erupted in a silent explosion, leaving only debris drifting in the colorful gases. One down, Louis said grimly. Let's find the rest. Again and again, the human fighters struck from the nebula's cover. Verox ships fell one after another, caught completely by surprise. Louis' tactical display slowly evened out as the odds shifted in their favor. Suddenly, new contacts appeared on his radar. For a moment, Louis tensed, but then he recognized the signatures of Sicari warships. Wheezin had arrived. All units, push out of the nebula, Louis ordered. Let's catch these bastards in a crossfire. The human fighters burst from the nebula's edge, guns blazing. Caught between Louis' ambush and Wheezin's newly arrived fleet, the remaining Verox ships stood no chance. In minutes, it was over. Glad you could make it to the party, Commander, Louis quipped over the comm. Your unorthodox tactics continue to impress, Louis, Wheezin replied. But we have no time to celebrate. Our intel shows the Verox are in disarray. If we press our advantage now, we may be able to end this war once and for all. Louis nodded grimly. Agreed. All ships, form up. We're taking the fight to the enemy's home turf. What followed was a relentless campaign deep into Verox space, human ingenuity combined with Sicari military might to devastating effect. Louis led daring raids on Verox shipyards, crippling their production capacity. Wheezin's fleets seized vital resource centers and strategic choke points. System after system fell as the Verox war machine crumbled. Then, just as victory seemed within reach, the unthinkable happened. A transmission came through on all channels. The Verox were suing for peace. Louis stared at the message in disbelief. After 500,000 years of war, could it really end like this? But as he looked around at the scarred and battered ships of both sides, he realized the terrible toll this conflict had taken. Neither the Sakari nor the Verox had the strength to keep fighting. Days later, Louis found himself aboard a neutral space station, mediating tense negotiations between lifelong enemies. Trust was in short supply after eons of hatred. The Verox cannot be trusted to honor any ceasefire, a Sakari general snarled. They will rearm and attack again as soon as we lower our guard. And how can we be sure the Sakari won't launch a sneak attack to finish us off? A Verox diplomat shot back. The negotiations teetered on the brink of collapse, but then Louis had an idea. What if, he said slowly, a third party enforced the peace, a neutral power with no stake in your ancient conflict? All eyes turned to him. Louis took a deep breath and laid out his audacious plan. Human peacekeepers, occupying the contested systems between Verox and Sakari space. Absurd, the Verox diplomat spat. We will not allow aliens to... To what? Louis cut in. To keep the peace? To prevent more senseless death? You've been killing each other for longer than my entire species has existed. Isn't it time to try something new? Silence fell over the negotiating table. Louis could see the wheels turning in Weazen's mind, weighing the proposal. Finally, the Sakari commander spoke. It is not without merit, but can your people be trusted with such power? Louis met his gaze steadily. You trusted us to help end this war. Trust us now to keep the peace. More debate followed, hours of tense back and forth, but in the end, exhaustion and pragmatism won out. The Verox and Sakari delegates signed the agreement with shaking hands. As Louis watched the pens scratch across the treaty, he marveled at how far they'd come. From a chance encounter to changing the fate of an entire galaxy. The real work was just beginning, but for the first time in 500,000 years, there was hope for lasting peace. The arrival of the human peacekeeping force sent ripples through the galaxy. Massive warships and transports dropped out of hyperspace, their hulls gleaming in the light of unfamiliar stars. Admiral Francis Rogers stood on the bridge of the flagship, surveying the war-torn systems spread before him. Begin establishing outposts on the designated planets, Rogers ordered. I want a fortified presence in every key system within the week. Over the following days, human troops and engineers swarmed across dozens of worlds. They erected prefab structures, set up defense grids, and established monitoring stations to keep tabs on Sakari and Verox fleet movements. The message was clear. The ceasefire would be enforced. Not everyone welcomed their presence. On a Sakari colony world, Weazen watched with narrowed eyes as human dropships descended from orbit. This is an outrage, he growled to his advisors. Our people have defended these worlds for eons. Now we must suffer the indignity of alien occupation. Lewis Miller's shuttle touched down outside the Sakari Command Center. As he strode down the ramp, he could feel the tension crackling in the air. Commander Weazen, Lewis called out, forcing a smile. I hope we can work together to make this transition as smooth as possible. Weazen's expression remained stony. You ask much of us, human. My people grow restless at the sight of your warships in our skies. I understand your concerns, Louis said, but this is the surest path to lasting peace. Give us a chance to prove ourselves as allies, not conquerors. Over the next weeks, Louis shuttled between human outposts and alien leadership, his days a blur of tense meetings and delicate negotiations. Admiral Rogers relied heavily on Lewis's diplomatic skills to smooth ruffled feathers and open lines of communication. But maintaining the peace proved a constant struggle. Reports of skirmishes between human patrols and Verox holdouts came with alarming frequency. Another attack on our supply lines in the Rigel sector, Captain James Holden reported grimly. That's the third this month. How long are we supposed to play nice while they take pot shots at us? Admiral Rogers sighed. I share your frustration, Captain, but we must avoid escalation at all costs. Louis? Louis nodded, already pulling up communication channels. I'll reach out to the local Verox leadership immediately. We can't let these incidents spiral out of control. Despite the challenges, there were glimmers of hope. Louis brokered a meeting between top Sakari and human scientists, watching with pride as they excitedly discussed groundbreaking theories. The implications of merging our understanding of quantum mechanics with Sakari plasma dynamics are staggering, a human physicist gushed. We could revolutionize propulsion technology. Even Wiesen began to soften his stance. After touring a joint research facility, he pulled Louis aside. I must admit, your people continue to impress me, Wiesen said. Perhaps there is more to be gained through cooperation than I first believed. Louis allowed himself a small smile. Progress was slow, but it was happening. Piece by piece, world by world, they were forging a new future for all three races. But storm clouds were gathering on the horizon. In hidden bases across Varrock space, Admiral Zakoth rallied his ultra-nationalist followers. The humans seek to rob us of our destiny, Zakoth thundered to a sea of faces. They prop up our ancient foes and call it peace. We will not stand for this indignity. The time has come to drive out these meddling primates and finish what we started centuries ago. Cheers erupted as weapon caches were unveiled. Loyal captains pledged their ships to the cause. Zakoth's eyes gleamed with zealous fire as he surveyed his growing army. Soon, he promised. Soon we will strike, and the galaxy will burn. The air in the command center crackled with tension as Louis Miller and Admiral Rogers pored over the latest intelligence reports. Holographic displays flickered, showing grainy reconnaissance footage of Varrock's warships stirring to life in long-abandoned shipyards. This is a clear violation of the ceasefire, Rogers growled, his fist clenching. Zakoth's playing us for fools. Louis ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. We need to open a dialogue. Try to de-escalate before this spirals out of control. For days, Louis worked tirelessly, sending encrypted transmissions to every Varrock's diplomatic channel he could access. But each overture was met with stony silence or outright hostility. Finally, a response came through. Louis's heart sank as he read Zakoth's demands scrolling across his screen. He wants us gone, Louis reported grimly to Rogers. Complete withdrawal of all human forces from Varrock space within 48 hours. Rogers snorted. Like hell. We leave and the whole sector goes up in flames. Before they could debate further, alarms blared throughout the station. A frantic voice came over the comms. Sir, Varrock's insurgents have engaged the patrol fleet in Sector 7. Louis and Rogers sprinted to the command deck, arriving just in time to see Captain Holden's ship erupt in a ball of fire on the main view screen. Holden, report, Rogers barked. Static crackled. Then Holden's voice came through, strained and breathless. Taking heavy fire. Shields critical. No choice but to abandon ship. There's a human outpost on the surface. We're making for the escape pods now. Louis watched in horror as Holden's crippled vessel limped towards a nearby planet, Varrock's fighters swarming around it like angry hornets. One by one, tiny pods jettisoned from the dying ship, streaking towards the surface. Hours crawled by as they monitored the situation. Finally, Holden's voice crackled over the comms again. We've made it to the outpost, but Zakoth's forces are closing in fast. They've got us surrounded. I don't know how long we can hold out. Rogers' face hardened. He turned to his tactical officers, barking orders. I want every available ship mobilized and ready to launch within the hour. We're going to crush these bastards once and for all. Louis stepped forward, his heart racing. Admiral, please. If we go in guns blazing, we'll lose any chance at salvaging the peace. Let me try one last time to negotiate. Rogers glared at him for a long moment, then nodded curtly. You've got 24 hours, Louis. After that, we do this my way. Louis wasted no time, reaching out to Wiesen and the other moderate Sakari leaders still committed to peace. Within hours, they convened via hologram in a secure war room. Wiesen's normally stoic face was etched with worry. Louis, I'm afraid the situation is far worse than we realized. Our intelligence suggests Zakoth isn't just rearming. He's developing a bioweapon of unprecedented power. Louis felt the blood drain from his face. A bioweapon? Are you certain? Wiesen nodded grimly. If deployed, it could wipe out all life in the galaxy. We cannot allow this to happen. Louis took a deep breath, his mind racing. He looked around at the assembled leaders, human, Sakari, and those few Varrocs who had remained loyal to the peace. In that moment, he knew what had to be done. "We have no choice," Louis said, his voice steady. "We must strike first, together, before Zakoth can unleash this weapon. It's our only hope of averting total annihilation." Weazen's eyes met Louis's, filled with centuries of weariness and pain. "You are right, my friend. For the sake of all our peoples, we will fight alongside you, even if it means shedding the blood of our own kind." Louis nodded, a grim smile crossing his face. "Then let's end this war once and for all."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.